Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health Live Show, episode 78. I'm Dr. Narissa Bauer, your host. I'm a behavioral pediatrician and CEO of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Each week, I bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now, let us know that you're here by commenting, asking questions, and liking at any time. And in a little bit, your questions will be asked of my guest. And the replay will be immediately available after the broadcast. Please share this episode with anyone you think who would benefit. And if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out my past ones, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD. Follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health, and join my free parenting discussion group. Now, today's topic is putting on your oxygen mask first with special guest Dr. Melo. Dr. Melo is a family and obesity board certified physician, as well as a certified life coach. Now, she specializes in burnout amongst physicians, but as well as with parents and caring professionals. Throughout her career, she has worked closely with moms of all ages to help support them on their parenting journey. Dr. Melo believes deeply that the mental health and well being of moms and other caregivers is essential to the health and development of the family. Megan, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. And this topic is so important. I feel like you can't ever talk about this enough. I think as parents and moms, especially, we give, raising our child everything that we've got. And then you layer on top the pandemic and the war and like everything going on. It's like, oh my gosh. And I don't know about you, but it's like mid-July and I'm already like thinking about going back to school.
Mhm.
And it's really stressful. It's like there's so
Yeah.
many
I
moving
mean,
parts all the time.
if you've been to Target lately, they've got backpacks and
Oh my
notebooks, and
gosh.
everything is just ready for us to go back to school.
I know. And I was at Home Goods the other day with my daughter, and they were putting out Halloween stuff. I'm like, I am not ready for this yet. Please. I don't know.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it sort of pushes us, into that pressure mode,
Yes.
right? I know that's not our topic for today, but no wonder, right? It's like this constant, oh, don't relax into summer. Don't be present with, summer and your kids. It's like, nope, we're already thinking about the fall.
I know. I know. I mean, like, come on. If you're watching and you're like, yes, I feel that too, just let us know because I don't know. It's like this bombarding of messages all the time, whether it be like, okay, be ready for this, be ready for that. And you just said it too. Like, I want to be present in the moment with my kids. Like, this is summer, you know? And it makes it so hard when you've got so many things getting thrown at you all the time. So,
Yeah.
but before we get started, could I ask you, because, when I was reading your bio, first of all, you're double boarded and then you became a life coach. I mean,
Mhm.
what led to you choosing that path for yourself and why?
Yeah. It's an interesting story
Yes.
with many levels. I was facing some burnout, some job dissatisfaction, and the stress of being a mom during the pandemic and a doctor during the pandemic and all of those things. And I was really doing that reevaluation thing that so many of us have done. And I decided that I wanted to gain more skills with helping people prevent chronic disease by, really working with them closely on obesity management. It's something I had tried off and on for many, many years as just a family medicine doc, but I didn't have really the time and the knowledge of, how do we actually help people? And I was in a system that didn't allow medicines to be used ever for obesity, and just seeing lots of families really struggle. So I decided to become obesity medicine certified, and I'll share that part of that was me as a woman, as a perfectionist, feeling like I needed another title in
Mhm.
order to make a change. Um, and I think there's so many instances of that where we're sort of, that perfectionist minded. And I share that because it really kind of feeds into this burnout cycle that we can very easily find ourselves in. So I decided to become obesity medicine certified and was thinking I'll open up a private practice with obesity medicine. But as I was doing that, I also participated in a group coaching where it was run by a female physician, but it was geared towards female physicians and really targeting burnout.
Mhm.
And I was really amazed by the impact of that. I'd been doing work in physician wellness for about 5 years at the time, but didn't have any practical tools or skills really to be able to share with people. And I found that the coaching model of the coaching certification that I got, which is the same as that mentor got, really just helped me sort of get my thinking and my emotions sort of back into better alignment.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of a weird journey, but that's my story. And I think, it's true of so many different pathways that we can choose to take. Something happens and we have a chance to respond, right? So the stress of all of the things that I was piling onto myself led me to say, you know what, I need to change.
Mhm.
And so here I
I
am.
know. I mean, and that's lovely. Thank you for starting with that because I think so much of what happens in our day to day can be so stressful and we question ourselves. But if we can learn to look at those moments and reframe it as, okay, what can I take away from that? I mean, we grow in those moments too, and I
Yeah,
think it's nice that you sort of went through your own journey and it's that much more meaningful, and that's why you're so passionate about what you do
yeah,
now. So
yeah,
thank you for sharing that. Well, so the whole analogy, parents, put on your oxygen mask first before you help your child. I really love that title of your talk today. So let's talk about that. What are some things, or what can parents start doing to take care of themselves now?
yeah. I think it's really important that you are going into parenting with this mindset of, yes, I'm going to do the things to take care of my kid, but part of taking great care of my child is taking great care of myself. And that includes the basics, right? Good, healthy food. It includes getting adequate rest and exercise or physical activity, taking care of your brain as well, like making sure that, you have healthy ways of coping with stress. Unfortunately, we have lots of data that says the more stressed mom is in particular, it's always the mom role that seems to be most studied compared to other caregivers, regardless of gender. Mom's got special role really from pre-pregnancy out through further into childhood in determining sort of stress responses in kids.
Hmm.
How stressed we are during pregnancy can have an impact on how our kids regulate stress later. And so that's kind of the why. But really, focusing on those basic things, like, do you get time for yourself? Do you put yourself to bed the way that you put your kids to bed? Rather, it's kind of, we laugh about, like, get the kids to bed, right? So I finally have time for myself. That is important, but also sleep is important. Um,
Yes.
so I mean, just thinking really about those core basics. Are you fulfilling your physical needs? Are you getting your emotional needs met so that you can come into your parenting role with kind of the best energy possible? Teaching your children, not only like how do they do their bedtime according to sort of your family's rules, but how are you also, taking those messages and living yourself, right? Because of course, kids, we joke that they don't listen to what we say. That's its own issue, but they do watch what we do,
They
right?
do.
So if we're harping on them to brush their teeth every day, and they know that we never brush our teeth, what do you think they're gonna take away from that?
Yes. I mean, that's so true. I mean, when I used to do parenting classes, we talk a lot about the role modeling principle. I
Yeah,
mean, where our kids first and most important teachers in their lives, and so they're constantly watching us, you know. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times parents are like, "Oh my gosh, that means I'm never off," you know. And it
Yeah.
can be so daunting to think about that, but
Yeah.
I
And
think
it's interesting. We think about burnout with specific, jobs like physician
yes,
burnout, nurse burnout. Like we've read the teacher burnout. We've read lots, about that, especially during the pandemic. Um, but but burnout can happen in any sort of role that doesn't have a discrete start and stop. I loved when I read. I don't remember where I read that, but you think about that with parenting. There isn't a discrete start and stop of when are we done parenting? We're not.
yeah,
And when did it start? Everyone's going to give us a different answer on that. And so it makes total sense that this role that's so important in the lives of our kids, and so important in the lives of just the generation, that comes after us, we can have burnout there too.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's
so
so
learning to
true.
take good care of ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, um, you did talk a little bit like about the why, but
Yeah.
can you maybe help us think through this, especially because you've probably had a lot of experience talking one-on-one with families as a family medicine physician. Like, families feel like, well, how can I do that? Like
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
we have guilt about doing that. You know?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, can you like maybe build up on that? Like why should parents take the steps to take care of themselves
Yeah.
first?
I think one thing that I'll throw out there is when you think about how you want to show up as a parent,
Hmm.
most of us don't want to be yelling. We don't want to be authoritarian. We don't want to be this very sort of bossy tyrant, who's kind of on their last legs in terms of energy. But when we aren't managing our own stress, we're acting out of that place of stress. Our thoughts, about situations really create our feelings, and our feelings really drive our actions, right? So if our feelings are constantly stressed, irritable, annoyed, angry, then what the kid sees is us acting from those places, right? Yelling, not taking good care of ourselves, not solving problems with flexible mindset, that kind of that kind of thing. And so it's really important to think about your self-care in that, like how you take care of yourself, how you manage your stress allows you to come to that parenting relationship more often the way that you want to show up in your child's life.
Hmm.
It also has the benefit, of course, of helping to teach them, helping to guide them, helping to model for them how they cope with their stress. My oldest son is 10, and he's been wrestling with a lot of new feelings as he's kind of hitting that preteen zone. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of comparison, there's a lot of stuff going on that's new. And as I see him working through that, I really am feeling this need to really kind of up level modeling for him how I manage my own difficult feelings, because we don't get to avoid those experiences. We think about the helicopter parent scenario, right, where you're trying to manage and prevent all these hardships from happening, but we don't. Life is full of hardships. We want our kids to be able to manage failure and frustration and disappointment and all of those big feelings. So, we need to really learn to do it ourselves. And, implicit with that is, kind of stress management, if you will, right? Kind of managing lots of different responsibilities, lots of big feelings, evaluating what your resources are, all those kinds of challenges that come up.
Hmm. Yeah, that is so true. And I like that. I like what you just said. I have to up level, my own, what I'm doing, and not just go in and do things for him, because again, I think we have to resist that temptation, especially at this age too. We want to give
Yeah,
him the experience of, figuring out that he can weather that.
right, right.
So that is a gift. That is a
Yeah,
gift, right?
yeah. But it's a
Um,
tough gift.
it's I mean, yes,
There's
it
so many
is.
reasons.
Yes, I'm not downplaying that at all. I'm
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
But, no, like, what okay, so I'm like, let's put ourselves in the shoes of parents, who are
yeah,
either watching or listening. What if we get it, we understand we've gotta just take care of ourselves, but, like, what if what we're doing doesn't seem to be working? We find
yeah.
ourselves still very short, frustrated, overwhelmed, like, where do we go from there?
Yeah. So I really love sharing with people this book called Burnout. So this is by Emily Nagoski and Amelia Nagoski, and they are twin sisters, both with different kinds of doctorate degrees. And they talk about this phenomenon called the stress cycle. And you think about it in terms of your body's, sort of chemical and neural makeup. So during times of stress, our sympathetic or that fight or flight response gets activated, right? Our heart rate goes up, we're breathing fast, we're really sort of activated and stressed. And that's a normal thing that we developed, over the millennia in order to run away from danger. The problem with, kind of modern living is that that system gets triggered frequently,
Mhm.
including in those parenting moments, when things don't seem to be going right, or there's traffic, or, any number of other little things that happen. So if we're constantly in that fight or flight mode, our body is totally sort of up in that stress. And so, example they give, is thinking about completing this whole stress cycle. So if you were living in your village and you were out looking for some food, and you came across a bear, right? The bear is looking at you thinking you look like a great snack, right?
Yes.
So immediately your body is conditioned to go into that fight or flight. So heart rate goes up, lungs are breathing harder, so you're getting more oxygen, so you can, run faster, pump oxygen and blood into those muscles so you can run away, right? The whole system is engaged. You run back to your cave. As you do, your neighbor, pulls you into their cave and rolls the rock or whatever the door is, and separates you from the stressor. So the bear, the stressor, is outside.
Mhm.
You are inside and you're still in stress mode because you just got into safety. And so in that moment, there's an opportunity that would naturally occur where, like, you and your neighbor would be embracing, you would be making eye contact, you'd be breathing deeply, you might be hugging them, you would be doing things that bring your body out of that stress mode and into the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. You are okay. You and your stressor are now separated. It's time to calm back down.
Mhm.
And so that's such a beautiful thing. That is the natural pattern that's supposed to happen. But in modern life, what tends to happen, right? We wake up, we're tired. Maybe we hit the snooze button a few times. We have to get the kids out of bed. We have to feed them, get them their clothes. There's never any clean socks by the door, get them to school, get to work. There's traffic, there's this, there's this. And we just go all day and we're just up in that stress cycle. And we never do anything to bring ourselves down. And it doesn't have to be elaborate, but there are some key things that can be really helpful. Physical activity, so moving your body. And they give the great example of doing jumping jacks when you pull into the driveway and you're about to head into the house after your day of work, like doing some jumping jacks, just doing something little for a minute or two
Hmm.
to kind of
Mhm.
bring yourself down.
Okay.
Um, Laughing, like deep belly laughter, hugging somebody, a good 20-second hug, crying, doing things that are like kind of big physical things that get your body's physiology back into that restful state.
Mhm.
And so, what this can look like for parents is sometimes doing that thing where when you feel like you're just like, oh, my kids are driving me crazy, going into the bathroom and sitting on the floor, your closet, or wherever you've got a little quiet space, and just slowly taking deep breaths. Something as simple as that for 2 minutes, big, deep, those deep, slow breaths can also do it. And just imagine how different your relationship can be when you take little moments for yourself to bring yourself down out of that.
Mhm.
It can make a tremendous difference. Even though it's very simple,
Yep.
it takes very little time, um, but it's very, very effective.
Yeah. I mean, I even love your suggestion, like as you're parking the car, you take a minute even just to like do some physical activity right
Yeah,
there, it doesn't
yeah,
have to take long. But especially for families whose commute is very stressful,
yeah,
I think it's a really nice way to just fit that in before you walk into the door and you're kind of ready.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I love that. And then, can you tell me a little bit more? So the stress cycle, I understand, but I think before we went live, we were talking a little bit about this term that you use that I'd not heard before, the human
yeah,
giver syndrome. What is that? Can
yeah,
you tell? Because I thought that
yeah.
was really interesting, and I'd love you to kind of explain that.
Yeah. So the term came from Kate Mann back, and it was first used in 2017. And it's this idea that some people, including many women, many caregivers, some cultures more than others, have been conditioned to believe from an early age that their role is to serve other humans, that serve everyone before yourself. And what this looks like in many of us is people pleasing and, always feeling like you can't rest until everyone else is taken care of, right? Everyone else is fed, clean, happy. Uh, like they've got all the things that they need, and only then, do you have an ability to kind of sit down. I think it happens for so many women, even if you weren't sort of raised with that model, that we fall into that thinking, I need to, make sure that everything in the family is all tucked in before I take care of me. And what's dangerous about that, of course, is that if we continue to live that way and continue to have that mindset where we're always serving other people, then we're of course not engaging with all these really helpful stress management. We're not taking good care of ourselves. We're not really thinking about ourselves in the long run, and we're not modeling,
Hmm.
or we're modeling something that we don't want to model.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think it's really important to notice that if you find yourself in that pattern where you kind of always believe that you have to keep working until everybody else is taken care of, first starts with just really being aware of that and taking little tiny steps, in order to say, oh, it's really important that I sit down and eat now, that I take a moment for myself,
Yeah.
that I take a break.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
we have a comment here from someone. Yes, the dishes done, kitchen clean, laundry done, and child tucked in bed. Well, first of all, high five. I mean, it always feels so good to get that like check off. But
Yeah.
again, like you said, if we're always kind of in that mode and then constantly running a butt, running out of time for ourselves, it can really wear us down too
Yeah.
over time. I mean, I don't even want to say, but like laundry, I hate laundry. I I just I have like loads that I run through and then I leave them to fold and sometimes it's like days
Sometimes they
before.
don't get
I
folded.
mean, it's yes. Oh my gosh. But like, if that was, I just, it's like one of those things. I just can't. But one thing that I did start doing, and I posted about this the other week. I finally got myself back to tap class. And it's like
Yeah.
one thing that I
Yes.
do out of just the joy to do it. But
Yeah.
I come back from that so much happier
Yeah.
and, like, looking at that laundry, I'm like, "Okay, I got it," like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. So, I mean, there is that too, like, if you can at least take something for yourself,
Yeah.
whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a tap class, but you know what I mean? Like you just come back feeling re-energized and then
Yeah.
it makes the other stuff not so big, at least for me. So,
Yeah. No, I think it's so important. And I mean, there's lots of studies out there suggesting that, when you infuse fun into your day on purpose,
yes.
which I presume tap class is fun.
Yes.
Not only do you enjoy it, does that reduce your stress level and all that, but it actually makes you more productive. And not because we're trying to be more productive, but yeah, you have a little bit more energy to come back and be like, okay, it's time to do this chore of the laundry and I
Yes.
can get that done. And I think too, at some point we have to sit down with our list of the to-do shoulds
Mhm.
of like, I should be doing all of these things and figure out what can we just take off the list because it's not important. There are some seasons when, putting away the clothes all folded perfectly, it's just not, it's not really that critical, right? We have clothes.
Mhm.
we can we
Yes.
can wear clothes. So what can we just take off the list?
Or
There's
delegate,
others that might
right?
be like on it, it might be the Instacart
Mhm.
shopping and making sure that you have groceries delivered to your house. Like
Mhm.
some people don't like to go to the store. That's a great option. What can you take off the list or delegate
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of believing that you should do it all,
Mhm.
and if only you were better, you'd fit it all in.
Yep.
And that it all needs to be done.
I know. I mean, there's one thing like and again, I'm I told you guys about the laundry. I mean, the one thing that I find that I have to do is I have to wash the dishes. It's hard to like for me to go to bed with a bunch of dishes in the
Mm,
sink and then waking up and seeing that, I'm like,
yeah,
"Ah!" For me, that's like I have to get that done. Um, but I've let other things go.
yeah, yeah,
So, you know,
yeah,
yeah, it's really important to kind of find that balance, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, any last words about or any other tips or strategies that you want to kind of impart to folks? Because I think it's so important to kind of think through that. I think you gave us a lot to kind of ponder and think about. Anything else, though?
I think I would recommend that people start with a why. Why is it important to figure out how to better care for themselves? And that might look a little different for everybody. If you think about if you have a particular child who's really got some particular struggles, and you know that you want to show up for them in a certain way, then really taking good care of yourself is really important. If you want to be modeling, how to delegate and share responsibilities, and what being a part of a family as a team working together
Mhm.
is, then that might be a part of your why. Like really figure out for you, why is it important to make a change? And it may be as simple as, I never do anything for me and it doesn't feel good to show up that way. And that might seem like a really selfish place to start, but it's really not, because we just know that caregivers, and it doesn't really matter like how many children or other people you're taking care of, or kind of what your situation is. It's just hard caring for other humans.
Mhm. It is.
So figuring out your why, and then later you can start to really get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, well, how am I going to start to make changes? How am I going to start to tiptoe into like, okay, I'm going to have to teach my kids how to, put their dishes, rinse the dish and put it in the dishwasher, whatever that looks like.
Mhm.
Um, but really committing to the why is the most important place to start.
Yeah. No, that's great words of wisdom there. So, guys, for those watching or listening, please, if you want to know more about Dr. Mello and what she is doing, learn more from her, please make sure to follow her. She's on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and that's her handle, Megan Mello MD. Is there anything that you're working on now or any other things that you have going on, Dr. Mello, that you can
Oh
talk about?
gosh, I don't know. Always a million ideas.
I know the mind never rests, right?
It never does. It never does. And as you've shared with your laundry, and I could share about any number of other things, we're all always on this journey, right? We're all
Yes.
figuring out for ourselves and for the people that we work with.
Yes. Always, always. So thank you so much. I hope you'll go check her out. Do you also have a website, Dr. Mello?
I do have a website. It's www.healthierforgood.com.
Healthierforgood.com. Okay, so we're going to add that to the show notes too, as well as all the social media platforms as well. Thank you so much for coming today. And before I let you go, I just wanted to tell everybody that next week's guest is Dr. Robert Sagi. He'll be talking with us about healthy outcomes after positive experiences. We've talked on this show about adverse childhood experiences or ACEs, and the stress response and toxic stress, how that can change brain and body physiology and contribute long term to mental health, physical health issues down the line. And that's why we need to identify these early. Well, Bob is part of he's doing a lot of work around the buffers for that, and not so that we don't have to think about all the doom and gloom. I've interviewed him before for a different podcast on behalf of the American Academy of Pediatrics, so I'm so excited to welcome back to this show and to this platform to talk about it. So please tune in next week. And then also for those of you doing our parenting book club, I do want to tell you, don't forget to join in. It's not too late. We're reading now books every 3 months, so you can join whenever. And this one is great because anxiety is so prevalent. I'm reading along this one too. I've never read it before. It's called Breaking Free of Child Anxiety and OCD. It's written by Dr. Eli Leibovitz, and he is going to be coming to do an author interview the first week of September. I have that date, but I don't want to misstate it, so I will post that in our parenting discussion group. And then lastly, I do want to tell you a couple other things is that first of all, please contact me if you have a topic or guest that you want to have featured or talk about in this group. Message me, email me, you know how to find me. But, as always, that's what I love to do is to bring on guests to talk about these things because when we talk about it, we can learn together. Okay. But the last thing I do want to tell you is that agency doors are going to be opening next month. And so, for those of you who are interested in my Teach Me ADHD course, information about that is going to go out in this coming week's newsletter. So, stay tuned for that. All right. Well, thanks so much again for all of that. So lovely to talk with you, Dr. Mello. Thank you for sharing your time. Again, for those of you watching, please take to heart, put on your own oxygen mask first. Find something that brings you joy. Focus on the why, because you can show up to be a better parent, the parent you want to be for your child when you do that. So everybody take care. We'll talk next week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.